right, good afternoon, everybody. So, we're going to talk here for a minute about some new technology coming to the virtual production market. We're marketing it as RGB Plus or RGB Full Spectrum. And the whole idea here is to talk about lighting quality for virtual production. I promised I would talk only for 5 minutes at the introduction, and I'm going to make my time. What I usually do when I talk about virtual production is I start talking about the theory of virtual production. The theory is that if we can establish an environment where we can control the surrounding lighting, meaning that light from a window should look the same, or light from a tree or the wall or the carpet. If we have a studio where we can control the environment, we can apply global illumination to our captures in camera. That was a huge revolution in VFX in the early 2000s when lighting could be captured from an image and applied in VFX to computer-generated content. Now we're using the same techniques and the same strategies in VFX to affect lighting in the studio. We can reproduce locales out of this world or places that are difficult to get to. We have one customer in the US that we do some communications with where they did a shot where they were in the center of a championship boxing ring. And they really captured the center ring of a championship boxing match and reproduced that lighting accurately using virtual production. If we can accomplish that, then in the studio, we can shoot any location, any time, any environment that we want. But getting to that fidelity is the trick. And that's what we're here today, is full spectrum, talk about timing, talking about speed, and how to do that. So I have two people joining me from our esteemed partners at Megapixel and Brompton. Megapixel and Brompton are both video processing companies. They're providing the receiver cards and the box that takes the video input feed and translates it to our video tiles. We have Cesar. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Cesar Cáceres. I am the product lead for Brompton Technology. It is absolutely great being here with Brompton. Thank you very much, Tucker, for the invitation. And yeah, looking forward to see where the conversation goes.
And from Megapixel, we have Brian. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Brian Schmucker with Megapixel. I am the product support specialist for the US side of things. And again, Tucker, thank you for having us and looking forward to a good chat.
Absolutely. Everything we do wouldn't be possible without good processing behind us. So, we appreciate our relationship with both of you and glad to have you both on stage together. So, with that, I think I'll let you kick it off, Cesar, if you wanted to discuss a little bit about Brompton and the history, the strategy towards virtual production in the market and full spectrum. Yep. And then we'll hear from Brian for a few minutes after that.
Of course. So, Brompton has been a leader in LED processing for many, many years in the past. We have been very, very focused. Obviously, it's LED processing. We work with the top brands of LED all around the world. So for us, the quality of these panels, the quality of what we are sending to them and what they can reproduce is very important. And that's where calibration comes in. We developed our calibration in 2019, and this is the heart, this is the soul of why we can achieve the best quality of every single pixel in every single panel. And that is the main thing that we do. It's LED processing. I don't want to pretend like we are doing whole workflows in the pipeline to achieve real-time rendering, etc. We focus in making the content look absolutely amazing. And that includes color, that includes frequencies, that includes working very closely with these panels. Now, as we evolve, obviously reliability is very important, color is very important. Some tricks, we started putting cameras in front of LEDs, and that started becoming more and more popular with live events. But as well, this is the heart of virtual production. So we developed many tools to make sure that these cameras are going to get the best content out of the LED panels. No artifacts. We are trying to recreate the real world. And that is extremely complicated. So the panels have to look great in camera. But if we go one step forward, one step ahead of that, we realize that any of you actually worked in an LED volume. LED volumes there? Exactly. Whenever you see the true light panels and then you get into an LED volume, you realize that the skin tones suddenly look absolutely wrong. And that's a problem. That's a problem because what we are trying to do is an easier workflow. But if you have so many panels as we have in here, these days, LED is becoming bigger and bigger. We have more and more panels everywhere. Sometimes it's the floor. We have it in here. Ceilings can be absolutely massive. And that creates so much lighting. That makes LED have a new function, and it is being used as a source of lighting. And that has many, many benefits, actually. You can use it for dynamic lighting, so your content is actually going to be creating the right colors and the right movement, so it merges the light and the video. And you can get better brightness because the ceiling will have more brightness. But the problem is that if the spectrum is incorrect, you will have to compensate all that with normal lighting. And instead of taking advantage of it, what we are doing is complicating the life of our lighting guys. Anyone that worked in virtual production knows that the camera, the LED, and the lighting has to work together all the time. It is a combined effort to make sure that the reality is achieved. So for us, it's very, very important that first, we have a wider spectrum, and we release our first panel with True Light together with ROE. So we are very grateful because it looks absolutely amazing, and it is changing the way that the industry is going. By having better spectrum with a good calibration, so these panels, this light is going to have exactly the same colors as your background, we achieve an easier point, a closer point to start shooting. So everybody will have better tools, and the creatives will be able to do what they do, that is create amazing content. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cesar. And I think from Brian, you have a few words to say about Megapixel, the treatment towards the market, strategy, and some product innovations you guys have.
Yep. So the Megapixel team has been together the better part of 20 years now at this point, and been together for quite a long time, and a lot of that time was spent actually doing things like the early versions of virtual productions, things like The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Murder on the Orient Express, things like that, that we're using a lot of LED type panels to actually light things like trains and things along those lines using LED panels. So when we designed our processor, the Megapixel Helios processor, all of that history, all that knowledge over the years kind of went into building it. And with that, we had designed it out of the gate to be able to do something like a RGB plus multi-primary type panel. So something like the PX1 card that is in every panel can do up to 6 primaries. So something like you saw around the corner, the RGBCA and all that kind of stuff, is exactly the same system that when we sold, say, Helios number 1 out of the gate, while we didn't know that that's something that we might be doing with it, it's something that you today can do using the exact same infrastructure that you bought from day one. So I think to me that was a very good situation for everybody, and you can still use all your Ethernet cables and all your everything just as you bought it from day one. So so I mean, going forward, I think Tucker and team here have a lot of good ideas on cool things that might come about in the future, and RGBCA is something that you should be really proud of.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, with that, we'll have a seat. And I'm going to take a few more minutes of your time now to talk about different settings that we have and different types of panels that we're using to create RGBW and RGBCA full spectrum lighting. So, to start with, on the left side of our camera feeds here, we can see, I believe this is in RGB mode. If we toggle between the RGB and the RGBW, you can really tell the difference you can see it in the strawberry and the flowers very easily. And if you want to take a close look at this, after the talk, we can meet around the corner and take a close look. And there'll be a few representatives from all the parties to have a conversation. So RGB to RGBW, you see the reds and the oranges become very saturated, oversaturated, or overexposed in the RGB. And somebody asked me a very good question earlier about, well, maybe we can apply DaVinci Resolve Grader or something to this into onset feeds and correct for this. But what happens is that if you correct for, let's say, the oranges, in the RGB feed, you can see that the oranges that are on the vine there turn into tomatoes. If we applied some color correction in DaVinci Resolve to pull that red into an orange, how will that affect the colors of the flowers or the colors of the strawberry? So you can't just do something on set to say, let's take the red in or let's change the hue of this. because the composition itself has just lost its color balance. When you look at the RGBW, the oranges are orange, the flowers have their gradation from the orange and pale yellow. And if we compare, again, the RGB to RGBCA, you can see the same type of effect. So on the RGB, the oversaturation of red, the yellow and green are a little bit different. And then if we take an examination of the RGBW and RGBCA, so RGBW has some optimal, it's more optimal right around the peak white point of the W pixel. So it produces, for our tile, we chose a 4000 Kelvin, produces a very, very good warm white. And if we look at how the canary yellow, if you look at the color checker above the grayscale, there's blue, green, red, canary yellow, or I guess yellow, magenta, and cyan. That yellow and the yellow of the lemon, when you go take a look over there, on the RGBW feed, they're a little bit closer together in hue and saturation than they are naturally in our scene. If we look naturally in our scene, you'll see a difference there with the RGBCA. And that comes from two factors. Mainly that the RGBCA is much more evenly spectrally matched because we can modulate between the red and green and between the blue and the green. So those are the three variants of color that we have. Both are available. Very eager to talk about some productions and demos with your teams. With that, while we have both the Megapixel and Brompton representatives here, if there's anybody that has a few quick questions, I'll open that up.
No, I wanted to comment about the differentiation because we were talking about maybe trying to compensate these color shifts that are happening. And it is true that it will modify more colors in the environment, but it's not only about the foreground elements. The fact is that if you modify the color compensation of that they don't look correct because obviously the light is incorrect, the background will have
True.
the right lighting. So if you modify anything in post-production, you're going to destroy the whole image.
Yeah.
So we are basically saving a lot of time
Yeah, absolutely.
for post-production.
When I was talking with someone earlier about bit depth, and the cameras that we buy and use today in virtual production, you know, as amazing as these new RE cameras are and Sony cameras are, there's a limitation to their dynamic range and their bit depth. So if you capture some light on scene and on set, and then you go into grading and editorial, there's a step before color grading where they apply color correction. They apply some corrections to exposure or a few other things to camera feeds before editorial grading. And if they use a very high level of mathematical power to make corrections to the footage, like in the case of RGB, so they do a lot of power window, they modify this, takes a lot of time to balance the composure to neutrality. It's very hard to key the foreground and background in virtual production, cause some issues there. Then you end up using all your mathematical power for corrective action instead of using your mathematical power for editorial color grading. And what you want on set as producers and as cinematographers is that the lighting is not dictating your color choice. The lighting should apply enough light to the scene that the camera can see it. The exposure is neutral. And then you can editorially make the choice that you want to make. And I think both RGBW and RGBCA are the step that it takes to get from where we are today to that global illumination revolution in visual effects.